The great assembly hall stretched so far that its walls disappeared into shadows. Lights floated in the air like tiny stars, and the floor was made of something that looked like water but felt solid underfoot. Creatures from 100 different worlds filled the massive space. Some had wings, some had scales, and some were just floating clouds of gas held together by force fields. Taemin stood in the observation gallery, watching everything below. He was young for someone in his position, barely 200 cycles old. His people, the Vryloth, lived for thousands of years, so he was still considered inexperienced. His skin shifted colors slightly as he felt nervous, a trait his species couldn't control. Right now it flickered between blue and green. Below him, the council members sat on their elevated platforms. Each platform adjusted to fit the needs of its occupant. Some were filled with water, others with toxic gases that would kill most species instantly. The council represented the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They had ruled for 10,000 cycles without serious challenge. Today's meeting was different. Taemin could feel the tension in the air. "The matter before us is simple," announced Velkaris, the council speaker. His voice boomed through translation devices that let every species understand. "Humanity has become a problem." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Humanity. The newcomers. The young species that had only reached the stars 200 cycles ago, a blink of an eye in galactic terms. "They expand without permission," continued Velkaris. "They ignore our territorial markers. They refuse to acknowledge our authority. They are children playing with fire, and they will burn themselves and others." An elder from the Nexian collective spoke up, her tentacles waving in agitation. "They have colonized 40 systems, 40! Without asking, without waiting for approval, without showing proper respect. Their ships cut through established trade routes," added a Krell representative, his massive form filling his entire platform. "They disrupt commerce. They ask too many questions. They want to trade with everyone, talk to everyone, make friends with everyone. They have no sense of proper order." Taemin had been studying humanity for the past 3 cycles. He found them fascinating. They were strange creatures, soft-skinned, short-lived, and incredibly fragile compared to most spacefaring species. They needed a very specific temperature range to survive. They could only breathe one type of atmosphere. They required water constantly. By all logic, they should never have left their home planet. Yet they had, and they hadn't stopped. "What do we know about their military capability?" asked another council member. Taemin's superior, War Master Dex Shan, stepped forward to answer. His holographic form appeared in the center of the assembly. "Very little, honored council. They have ships, of course. They have weapons, but nothing compared to our forces. Our estimates suggest their entire fleet combined could not stand against a single one of our dreadnoughts." "Then the solution is obvious," said Velkaris. "We send an enforcement fleet. We show them our power. We demand their surrender. If they refuse, we destroy enough of their colonies to make them comply. It is what we have always done." The vote was quick. Every council member agreed. Humanity would be brought under Confederation authority, by force if necessary. Then came the question of who would lead the fleet. "It must be someone they cannot ignore," said Velkaris. "Someone whose reputation alone will make them understand the futility of resistance." Every eye turned to one platform. There sat Jiwoo, Supreme Commander of the Confederation military forces. He was Krell, a species known across the galaxy as the finest warriors ever to evolve. He stood nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and skin like dark metal. Scars covered his body, each one a mark of honor from battles won. Jiwoo had never lost a battle. Not once in 500 cycles of warfare. He had broken siege lines that had held for generations. He had defeated war fleets of the Tragon Swarm. He had personally killed their war king in single combat. His name was spoken with respect and fear across 700 star systems. "Will you accept this honor, Supreme Commander?" asked Velkaris. Jiwoo rose from his platform. When he spoke, his voice was deep and calm. "I will go. I will take our finest vessels and our greatest warriors. I will show humanity what it means to stand against the Confederation. They are primitives who stumbled into the stars barely yesterday. We shall remind them of their place in the natural order." The council erupted in approval. Platforms flashed with lights indicating agreement and satisfaction. "How long will you need?" asked Velkaris. "1 solar cycle," replied Jiwoo. I will return within 1 solar cycle with humanity's unconditional surrender. This I promised to the Council and to the Confederation. The Assembly applauded. The matter was settled. Humanity would learn its place. Taemin watched it all from above. He should have felt satisfied. This was proper order being restored. This was how things were supposed to work. The strong guided the weak. The old taught the young. The Confederation had stood for 10,000 cycles because it maintained proper structure and hierarchy. But something bothered him. He had studied the human data carefully. Their history showed something unusual. They fought each other constantly. Hundreds of separate nations on their homeworld, always arguing, always competing. Yet when faced with external threats, they unified impossibly fast. They had survived ice ages, plagues, asteroid impacts, and even nuclear war. They were soft and weak individually, but together they were remarkably hard to kill. He pushed the thoughts aside. Jiwoo had never failed. The Supreme Commander would show humanity the same thing he had shown every other species that challenged Confederation authority. Overwhelming force could not be denied. 3 cycles later, the enforcement fleet assembled in orbit above Nexus Prime. 12 dreadnoughts formed the core, each one capable of destroying a planet's surface. 300 support vessels surrounded them. Carriers, destroyers, support ships, supply vessels. 50,000 warriors from a dozen species, all trained to perfection. Jiwoo's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, sat at the center. It was the largest warship ever built, a monument to Confederation power. Its weapons could crack a moon in half. Its shields could withstand the blast of a supernova. It had been constructed over 50 cycles by the finest engineers in the galaxy. Taemin stood in the strategic planning center of his assigned vessel, watching the fleet prepare to depart. His job was to analyze data, provide strategic recommendations, and help coordinate the response once humanity surrendered. It should be simple work. His skin flickered blue again. Uncertainty. Jiwoo's final address to the fleet played on every screen. We go to face primitives who do not understand the power they have provoked. We will show them. We will be firm but fair. Surrender will be accepted. Resistance will be crushed. The Confederation has stood for 10,000 cycles. It will stand for 10,000 more. Humanity will learn to respect proper order, or they will learn the price of defiance. The fleet engaged its hyperdrives. Space twisted, folded, and they were gone, traveling faster than light toward the human home system called Sol Taemin. Couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He pulled up the human cultural files one more time, reading through their history, their art, their strange philosophies. One quote caught his attention from some ancient human leader. "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender, never surrender." Taemin's skin turned dark purple. Fear. He hoped Jiwoo knew what he was doing. The hyperspace journey took 15 cycles. The enforcement fleet moved through the folded dimensions of space, crossing distances that would take normal travel thousands of years. Jiwoo spent most of the journey in his command chamber, studying what little information the Confederation had gathered about humanity. It wasn't much. Humans had appeared on the galactic stage so recently that proper intelligence gathering had barely begun. They had left their homeworld only 200 cycles ago, first in slow ships that took decades to reach nearby stars, then in faster vessels as their technology improved. They had spread like seeds on the wind, establishing colonies wherever they found habitable worlds. Heejin, Jiwoo's second-in-command, entered the chamber. She was Nexian, with pale silver skin and eyes that saw in spectrums invisible to most species. She had served with Jiwoo for 300 cycles and earned her rank through countless battles. "The fleet reports readiness," she said. "All systems functional. All warriors prepared. We will exit hyperspace at the edge of human territory within 2 cycles. Jiwoo nodded. "What is your assessment of the humans?" Heejin considered the question. "They are disorganized. Our scans show no unified military structure. Each colony seems to operate independently. Some have defensive capabilities, others do not. They appear to have no central command that coordinates their forces. Then they will fall easily. Perhaps." Heejin hesitated, but Dong-hyun has been reviewing their cultural data. "He wishes to speak with you." Dong-hyun was the fleet's chief xenopsychologist and expert in understanding alien species. Jiwoo summoned him to the command chamber. The xenopsychologist arrived carrying data tablets. He was Vryloth, like Taemin, and his skin showed colors that indicated deep thought. Supreme Commander, I have concerns about our approach. Speak freely. Humans are individualists to an extreme degree. They value personal freedom above collective harmony. They distrust authority and question everything. Their entire civilization is built on argument and disagreement. Dong-hyun pulled up images showing human history. They have never had a global government. Even now, their homeworld is divided into nearly 200 separate nations, each with its own leadership. Then they lack unity, said Jiwoo. This makes them weaker, or harder to conquer, replied Dong-hyun. If there is no central authority, there is no one leader we can force to surrender. Each colony, each nation, each individual human may need to be convinced separately. Jiwoo dismissed the concern. We will demonstrate our power. They will understand. Fear is a universal language. The fleet exited hyperspace at the edge of human territory, in a system they called Kepler 442. Sensors immediately detected activity, mining stations, cargo ships, a small colony on the fourth planet. The fleet positioned itself in a standard intimidation formation, with the dreadnoughts forward and support vessels creating a wall of metal that blocked out the stars. Jiwoo ordered Dong-hyun to establish communication. The xenopsychologist broadcast on all frequencies, using the common trade language most species understood. Attention, human vessels. This is the Confederation Enforcement Fleet. You're in violation of Confederation territorial regulations. Power down your vessels and prepare to receive Confederation authority. The response came quickly, but it wasn't what they expected. Hello? This is Kepler 442 Mining Station Delta 7. We're reading a lot of ships out there. Are you folks lost? We're pretty far from the main trade routes. Dong-hyun looked confused. He tried again. This is not a trade mission. This is an enforcement fleet representing the Galactic Confederation. You must comply with our authority. A different voice responded, female and cheerful. Oh, the Confederation. We've heard about you guys. Nobody from your organization has visited our sector before. Are you here to establish diplomatic relations? That's really exciting. Let me get our colony administrator. Hee-jin frowned. They don't seem afraid. They don't understand yet, said Jiwoo. Continue. A few minutes passed. Then another voice came through, male and slightly distracted. Hello, Confederation Fleet. This is Administrator Jae-hyun Park. Sorry for the delay. We're in the middle of shift change. What can we do for you? Dong-hyun explained again, more firmly this time. The Confederation claimed authority over this region of space. Humanity had established colonies without permission. This was unacceptable. The colonies must acknowledge Confederation authority and pay proper tribute. There was a pause. Then Jae-hyun spoke again, sounding genuinely puzzled. I'm sorry, but we weren't aware this space was claimed. There were no marker buoys, no territorial beacons, nothing in the stellar cartography. We did standard surveys before establishing the colony. The system was empty. Ignorance is not an excuse, Dong-hyun replied, reading from the standard protocol. You must comply with Confederation law. Okay, but here's the thing, Jae-hyun said, and he sounded like he was trying to be helpful. We're an independent colony. We left Earth specifically because we didn't want to answer to Earth government. We're not going to start answering to a different government we've never met. That doesn't make any sense. Jiwoo felt his frustration growing. He took over the communication himself. I am Supreme Commander Jiwoo of the Confederation Military Forces. You will comply or we will use force. That seems excessive, replied Jae-hyun. Can we schedule a meeting? Maybe next month. We could talk this through properly. Using force over a misunderstanding seems really counterproductive. You have 1 standard hour to surrender, Jiwoo said, ending the communication. Hye-jin pulled up tactical displays. The colony has minimal defenses. A few old defense satellites. Some civilian ships. We could destroy it in minutes. No, said Jiwoo. We demonstrate power, but we do not slaughter civilians. Target one of their mining platforms. An unmanned one. Destroy it. They will see what defiance costs. The fleet moved forward. Targeting systems locked onto a distant asteroid mining platform. It was fully automated, harvesting minerals without any crew aboard. The perfect target, valuable enough to matter, harmless enough to destroy without guilt. Jiwoo ordered the weapons charged, then chaos erupted on the communication channels. Wait. Multiple voices started talking at once. Different human stations across the system had apparently been listening. You can't just blow up the mining platform. That's colony property. Do you know how long it took to build that? That's so wasteful. One voice cut through the others, female and sounding genuinely upset. That mining platform processes rare earth minerals for medical supplies. We have hospitals depending on that supply chain. You'd be hurting sick people. Jiwoo hesitated. He hadn't expected this response. He tried to explain that this was a demonstration, a warning, a necessary show of force. The responses came fast and angry. A demonstration? Just blow up random property to prove a point? What kind of civilization does that? This is literal terrorism. I'm recording this. This is going on the networks. Dong-hyun muted the incoming communications and looked at Jiwoo. Commander, they're not responding with fear. They're responding with outrage, and they're broadcasting everything to their other colonies. Hae-jin added, I'm detecting increased communications traffic across human space. They're sharing information about our fleet. Warning each other, Jiwoo made a decision. We proceed to their homeworld. We will speak directly with Earth's leadership. Surely they will be more reasonable. The fleet entered hyperspace again, heading deeper into human territory. They emerged in system after system, and each time they found the same strange response. Humans continued their activities normally. Ships moved between planets. Stations operated their functions. Some humans tried to communicate with the fleet, asking questions, offering trade, even inviting Confederation officers to visit their colonies for cultural exchange. No one seemed properly afraid. In one system, a human cargo hauler actually flew close to the Eternal Dominion. A cheerful voice broadcasted, Hey, impressive ship. My daughter loves military vessels. Could we get a picture? She's studying xenotechnology in school. Hee-jin looked at the sensor readings in disbelief. They're treating us like tourists. Jiwoo felt something he rarely experienced, confusion. Where was the panic? Where were the evacuation orders? Where was the military mobilization? Every other species he had faced understood immediately what an enforcement fleet meant. They either surrendered or prepared for battle. Humans just kept going about their business. Taemin, monitoring everything from his strategic vessel, compiled his observations into a report. His skin flickered through colors rapidly, his species equivalent of nervous pacing. The data made no sense. Human behavior violated every prediction model. They showed no sign of submission, but also no sign of organized resistance. They were just continuing their lives. He added a note to his report. Recommend caution. Human psychology does not match expected patterns. They may not understand the concept of overwhelming force, or they may not care. Recommend further observation before escalation. The fleet reached the edge of the Sol system 3 cycles later. Sensors detected thousands of vessels, hundreds of stations, and enormous amounts of communication traffic. Earth's space was incredibly crowded. It looked less like a military civilization and more like a busy marketplace. The wait was agonizing. Jiwoo had given Earth 12 standard hours to respond to his surrender demand. 6 hours passed, then 8, then 10. The communication channels remained silent. Hee-jin monitored the sensor readings. Human activity continues normally. No military mobilization detected, no evacuation protocols. They appear to be going about regular business. Perhaps they're preparing defenses quietly, suggested Dong-hyun. Or perhaps they're ignoring us, said Jiwoo, his frustration evident. Finally, with only 30 minutes remaining in the deadline, a response came through. A single communication from Earth's surface, from an office building in a city called Geneva. A human appeared on the screen. She was young, wearing simple clothing, sitting in a modest office with windows showing a city behind her. She smiled pleasantly. Hello, Confederation Fleet. My name is Subin Lee. I work with Earth's Diplomatic Coordination Office. Thank you for your message. We've received your surrender demand and shared it with relevant governmental bodies across Earth and our colonial systems. She paused to look at something off-screen, then continued. Unfortunately, we're going to need more time to formulate a proper response. You see, Earth doesn't have a single government that can speak for all of humanity. We have the United Nations, which is a coordinating body, but it doesn't have authority over sovereign nations. Each nation will need to discuss your demands and reach their own conclusions. Additionally, our colony worlds operate with significant independence. We'll need to convene sessions, hold votes, consult with citizens. This is unacceptable, Jiwoo interrupted. I demand to speak with your supreme leader immediately. Subin looked confused. We don't have a supreme leader. Different regions have different governmental systems. Some have presidents, some have prime ministers, some have councils, some have constitutional monarchies. The UN Secretary General could speak with you, but they don't have authority to surrender on behalf of everyone. Then who has the authority? Well, that's complicated. It depends on what you're asking. Military matters would involve each nation's defense leadership. Economic matters would involve different agencies. Colonial affairs would require consulting with colonial governors, but they're elected by their populations, so really the authority rests with the citizens themselves. Jiwoo felt like he was trying to grasp water. You're saying no one is in charge? No, lots of people are in charge. That's kind of the problem, or the feature, depending on your perspective. Democracy is complicated. Subin smiled again, apparently trying to be helpful. Look, why don't we schedule a proper diplomatic meeting? We could arrange visits with various Earth governments. I'm sure people would love to meet you. In the meantime, you're welcome to dock at Station Kepler 7 for shore leave. I'm sending the coordinates. The station has facilities for different atmospheric requirements and… Jiwoo cut the communication. He stood silent for a long moment, trying to process what he had just heard. A species that reached the stars without unified leadership. It was absurd. It was impossible. Yet here they were. Hyejin spoke carefully. Commander, perhaps we should demonstrate force more directly, not against people but against infrastructure. Destroy an orbital station or satellite. Something that proves we're serious. Jiwoo considered this. Find an unmanned target. Something valuable but not critical to life support. We'll show them what our weapons can do. The tactical team identified a large industrial station in high Earth orbit. According to scans, it manufactured solar panels and other space construction materials. No life signs aboard. Fully automated. Perfect. The fleet moved into position. The Eternal Dominion's main weapons began charging. Every system locked onto the target. Then the communication channels exploded with activity. Attention, unknown fleet. This is Earth Orbital Control. You are entering a restricted traffic zone. Please transmit your flight plan immediately. Unknown fleet. You're creating navigational hazards. Multiple vessels are in your projected path. This is Cargo Hauler Bright Star. Could you guys move? You're blocking the route to Station Luna 6. Hyejin tried to override the chatter. This is Confederation Enforcement Fleet. Clear this sector immediately. We are engaging in military operations. More voices joined in. Military operations? Here? Are you crazy? You can't just conduct military operations in a civilian traffic zone. There are 300 vessels in this sector. My kids are on that school transport. I've got medical supplies that need to reach Mars Station in 2 hours. Dong-hyun highlighted the sensor. Readings for Jiwoo. He was right. The space around Earth was incredibly crowded. Cargo ships, passenger vessels, private craft, shuttles, everything moving in complex patterns like a swarm of insects. The fleet's presence was disrupting traffic patterns across millions of kilometers. A new voice cut through, male and sounding exhausted. Confederation Fleet, this is Traffic Coordinator Jae-hyun Kim. Please, you're causing a collision cascade risk. If you fire weapons here, the debris field will spread. Ships will have to perform emergency maneuvers. We could have accidents, people could die. That is not our concern, Jiwoo replied coldly. Clear the area or face consequences. We can't just clear the area. Do you understand how much traffic moves through Earth orbital space every day? There are departure windows, arrival schedules, fuel calculations. Moving all these ships would take hours and cost millions in wasted fuel. Can't you just not blow things up? Is that an option? Jiwoo felt his patience snap. We are the Confederation Enforcement Fleet. We do not negotiate with primitives. We do not follow your traffic regulations. We are here to enforce Confederation authority. Silence for a moment. Then Jae-hyun spoke again, his voice weary. Okay, look. I get that you're having a bad day. You flew all the way here. Humanity didn't respond how you expected. You're frustrated. I understand. but you're in Earth space now. And in Earth space, we have rules about not destroying property and not endangering civilians. If you want to blow up our stuff, at least file the proper permits so we can evacuate the area first. Permits? Jiwoo couldn't believe what he was hearing. You want us to file permits to conduct military operations? Yes? Otherwise it's just random destruction of property, which is illegal. Even military forces have to follow laws. Hyejin muted the communication and turned to Jiwoo. Commander, this is unprecedented. They're treating military force like a regulatory violation. Jiwoo made a decision. He couldn't attack with so many civilian vessels nearby. It would be a massacre, and he was still a warrior with honor. He ordered the fleet to withdraw to lunar orbit, away from the crowded space lanes. Taemin, watching from his vessel, added another note to his growing report. Humans have weaponized bureaucracy. They use civilian presence as a shield. They treat military force as a regulatory matter. Traditional intimidation tactics are ineffective. Recommend new approach. For 3 cycles, the fleet remained in lunar orbit, while Donghyun attempted diplomatic contact with Earth governments. The responses were maddening. Each government wanted to talk separately. Each had different concerns. Some worried about economic impact, others about territorial sovereignty. Some wanted technology exchanges. One small nation offered to join the Confederation immediately if they could have a seat on the council. Meanwhile, human ships continued to fly past the fleet. Some were cautious, keeping their distance. Others came closer, apparently curious. One small private vessel actually hailed the Eternal Dominion directly. "Hey there, big ship. This is tourist vessel Wandering Star. We've got a group of students studying xenoarchitecture. Would it be okay if we took some photographs? Your ship design is fascinating." Hyejin denied the request, but 3 similar requests came within the hour. Humans treating the most powerful military fleet in the galaxy like a tourist attraction. Jiwoo called a meeting with his senior officers. This approach is failing. We cannot attack without causing civilian casualties, which violates our honor codes. We cannot negotiate because there's no central authority to negotiate with. We cannot intimidate a species that doesn't understand it should be intimidated. "What do you propose, Commander?" asked Hyejin. "I will go to Earth's surface personally. I will meet these governments face to face. I will make them understand what they're dealing with. If necessary, I will challenge their finest warriors to single combat. Surely they understand the concept of personal combat." Donghyun looked worried. "Commander, that's dangerous. We know very little about Earth's surface conditions or their security capabilities." "I have faced worse dangers." "Arrange it." 2 cycles later, a landing site was confirmed. Jiwoo would bring 50 of his finest warriors and land at the diplomatic complex in Geneva. Earth's various governments had been notified. Apparently, several wanted to send representatives to meet him. The command shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. Jiwoo watched through the viewports as they dropped through clouds. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white ice caps. It looked peaceful, soft. How had such a soft world produced such a confusing species? They landed on a pad marked with guidance lights. As the shuttle door opened, Jiwoo experienced Earth's atmosphere for the first time. It was thin compared to what he was used to, but his people could breathe it. For the next 15 cycles, Bora led Jiwoo through a bewildering maze of meetings. Each day brought new human leaders, each with different titles and different authority. None of them had the power Jiwoo needed. The first was President Yeonwoo Park of something called the Korean Federation. He met Jiwoo in a formal office, served tea, and listened politely to Jiwoo's demands for surrender. Then he explained apologetically that he would need to consult with the National Assembly before making any commitments. "I understand your position, Commander, but in our system, the President doesn't have unilateral authority over matters of this importance. We'll need to hold votes, have debates, consult with the people." "Your people?" Jiwoo asked. "Do your people command you?" "In a sense, yes. I serve them. They elected me." Jiwoo left the meeting more confused than when he entered. The next was Prime Minister Han Kim of the European Union, who explained that the EU was really a collection of nations, and each nation would need to discuss the matter separately. "But," she added cheerfully, I'm sure we can arrange meetings with all of them if you're patient. Then there was UN Secretary General Seok Jin-oh, who explained that the United Nations could facilitate discussions but couldn't make binding decisions for its member states. Think of us as coordinators rather than rulers, he said. Jiwoo met with corporate leaders who controlled entire colony worlds. They listened politely but explained they were accountable to shareholders and boards of directors. One CEO, a man named Min-ho Lee, actually offered to surrender his company's colonies if Jiwoo could guarantee better trade terms than the current Earth markets provided. Nothing personal, Commander. Just business. He met with colony representatives who had traveled from distant star systems. A woman named Dayun Song represented 3 agricultural colonies. She laughed when Jiwoo demanded her surrender. Commander, we left Earth because we wanted independence. We're certainly not going to accept authority from an alien government we've never heard of. That would defeat the entire purpose of leaving. Every meeting ended the same way. Polite refusal, or promises to discuss the matter further, or explanations about why that particular human couldn't actually make the decision Jiwoo wanted. Bo-Ra tried to explain during their travels between meetings. You have to understand, Commander. Human civilization isn't built on hierarchy the way yours seems to be. We're built on argument and compromise. Every major decision involves thousands of people debating, voting, disagreeing. It's messy and slow, but it's how we've always done things. It's chaos, Jiwoo said. Maybe. But it's our chaos and somehow it works. On the 10th cycle, Jiwoo's patience broke. He stood in the middle of a conference room after yet another fruitless meeting and raised his voice. Enough, I did not come here to attend endless meetings. I am Supreme Commander of the Confederation Military Forces. I have crushed civilizations. I have broken armies. I demand someone with actual authority surrender to me. The humans in the room looked at each other uncomfortably. Bo-Ra stepped forward carefully. Commander, I understand your frustration, but this is how we make decisions. There isn't a single person with the authority you're looking for. That's not how humanity works. Then how do you fight wars? How do you make quick decisions? How do you survive? Badly, admitted Bo-Ra with a small smile. We argue during crises. We debate while our cities burn. We vote while enemies approach. And somehow, when things get really bad, we find ways to work together. Not because someone orders us to, but because we choose to. Jiwoo sat down heavily. He felt tired in a way he had never experienced before. He had fought for 500 cycles. He had defeated every enemy. But he had never tried to conquer people who didn't believe anyone had the right to rule them. That evening, Jiwoo sat alone in his quarters, rooms Earth had provided in the diplomatic complex. They were comfortable but strange, designed for human proportions and preferences. He reviewed reports from Hyojin. The fleet remained in lunar orbit. The Confederation Council was sending increasingly urgent demands for updates. Time was running out. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Bo-Ra entered, carrying something on a tray. I brought dinner, she said. I thought you might be hungry. We've prepared food that should be compatible with Krell biology. It's based on the dietary data the Confederation provided in its initial communications. I'm not hungry. May I sit anyway? Jiwoo gestured at a chair. Bo-Ra sat down, placing the tray on a table. You seem troubled, Commander. I came here to force your surrender. Instead, I've spent 15 cycles attending meetings that accomplish nothing. I'm sorry about that. I know it must be frustrating. Do you fear me at all? Jiwoo asked suddenly. Do any of your people fear what my fleet could do to your world? Bo-Ra considered the question carefully. Some do. Fear is a natural response to potential danger, but most people are just curious about you, and some are angry about the threats you've made. Fear isn't our dominant emotion regarding your fleet. Why not? Because destruction is easy, Commander. Any civilization with enough weapons can destroy things. We're more interested in understanding why you think destruction would accomplish anything useful. What would it gain you? Respect, obedience, proper order. But why do you need those things? Jiwoo had no answer. The Confederation had always enforced order. It was how things were done. The strong guided the weak. The old taught the young. It was natural. Bo-Ra spoke softly. I've read about your history, Commander. The Krell were warriors before they joined the Confederation. You fought for survival on a harsh world. You earned your place through strength. I understand why you value power and hierarchy. But humans evolve differently. Our world was harsh too, but in different ways. We survived by cooperating without surrendering our individual wills. We learned to work together while still arguing about everything. It made us messy and inefficient, but it also made us resilient. You can't destroy us by cutting off the head because we don't have a head. We're more like a swarm or a network. Damage one part and the rest continues. Jiwoo thought about this. It matched what Taemin had reported. Humanity was decentralized, distributed, like trying to punch water. No matter how hard you hit, it just flowed around your fist. Over the following cycles, something changed in Jiwoo's approach. He stopped demanding surrender. Instead, he started asking questions. He met with human historians and learned about their past, thousands of years of warfare, suffering, survival. He learned about their world wars, their plagues, their disasters. Each time they had come close to destroying themselves. Each time they had survived. He met with a human historian named Insu Park, an elderly man with white hair and kind eyes. Insu showed him records of human history. "We've been fighting since we learned to make tools," Insu explained. Fighting each other, fighting nature, fighting the universe itself. We're not particularly strong. We're not particularly smart. We're just stubborn. When the universe says you can't, we say, watch us. That sounds exhausting, Jiwoo said. It is. But it's also beautiful. Every generation fights to make things a little better. Not much better, humans are good at messing things up. But a little better. Slowly, over thousands of years, we've built all this. Insu gestured at the city visible through the window. It's not perfect. It's not even particularly well organized, but it's ours. And we built it by never giving up. Jiwoo found himself spending more time talking with humans than planning military strategy. He met teachers, artists, engineers, farmers. Each one had different views on everything. Politics, philosophy, what to do about the Confederation fleet in orbit. They argued with each other constantly, yet somehow they functioned as a civilization. On the 20th cycle, Jiwoo made a decision that would change everything. He issued a challenge through official channels. He would fight humanity's finest warrior in single combat. If he won, humanity would acknowledge Confederation authority. If he lost, the fleet would withdraw. Borat tried to talk him out of it. "Commander, that's not how we make decisions. Even if you win, most people won't consider themselves bound by a combat outcome. We don't believe in trial by combat determining policy. Nevertheless, I challenge you. Find your finest warrior." The challenge was accepted by a man named Minsu Huang. He was a former military officer who had served in Earth's colonial defense forces before retiring to become a farmer. He agreed to the fight, though he seemed puzzled by the whole thing. The combat took place in a stadium. Jiwoo was shocked to find it filled with thousands of spectators. Humans had turned his challenge into entertainment. Some were even selling food and souvenirs. Minsu entered the arena wearing simple combat armor. He was tall for a human, but still much smaller than Jiwoo. He bowed respectfully before taking his fighting stance. The fight was brutal. Minsu was skilled, better than Jiwoo had expected. He used speed and strategy to compensate for his physical disadvantages. But Jiwoo had 500 cycles of combat experience. He had fought creatures that could tear metal with their bare hands. He had defeated the greatest warriors of a dozen species. The fight lasted 20 minutes. In the end, Jiwoo stood victorious while Minsu lay on the ground, defeated but alive. The crowd applauded, apparently humans. 3 months had passed since the enforcement fleet arrived at Earth. Jiwoo remained on the surface while his fleet stayed in lunar orbit. The Confederation Council sent messages daily now, demanding explanations, updates, results. Jiwoo ignored most of them. He didn't know how to explain what he had discovered. Life aboard the fleet had changed in unexpected ways. Heijin reported these changes to Jiwoo during their regular communications, and each report made the situation stranger. "Commander, human vessels continue to approach the fleet. Some bring supplies, they seem to think we need fresh food. Others bring gifts. Yesterday, a school sent us drawings made by their children. Apparently, we're part of their cultural studies curriculum now." "And the warriors?" Jiwoo asked. "Some remain disciplined. Others have begun interacting with the humans. Donghyun has established a regular cultural exchange program with several human scientists. They're fascinated by each other's societies. Are the warriors prepared to fight if necessary?" Heijin hesitated. "Commander, I don't know anymore. Something is happening to us. The humans are making it very difficult to see them as enemies. Jiwoo understood. The same thing was happening to him. He had spent 3 months on Earth, and the planet was wearing away his certainty like water wearing away stone. He spent his days wandering Geneva, often with Bo-Ra as his guide. She showed him human culture, their museums, their markets, their parks. He met humans from every walk of life. They all had opinions about the Confederation, about his fleet, about everything. They argued constantly, even with each other. It was exhausting and fascinating. One day, Bora took him to meet Insu again. The old historian had requested another meeting. They met in a small cafe overlooking a lake. Insu ordered tea for all of them and spent a long time just looking at the water before speaking. "Commander, I've been thinking about your situation. You came here to conquer us, but you can't, because we don't work the way conquerable civilizations work. You're stuck." "I'm aware," Jiwoo said dryly. "I want to tell you a story from human history. There was once a massive empire, the Mongol Empire, they called it. They conquered most of the known world through overwhelming force. They were the finest warriors of their age. They crushed everyone who opposed them. Like the Confederation, Jiwoo noted. Like the Confederation, Insu agreed. But they faced a problem when they tried to conquer places that didn't have traditional armies or central leadership. They could win battles, but they couldn't win the occupation. The people would scatter, resist in small ways, refuse to acknowledge the conquest. Eventually, even the mighty Mongols learned that some things can't be held by force alone. What happened to them? They adapted. They learned to govern through cooperation instead of pure force. They integrated with the cultures they conquered. In many ways, they were conquered by the very civilizations they had defeated, not through military might, but through culture, ideas, and persistence. Jiwoo was quiet for a long time. "Are you saying humanity is conquering us?" Insu smiled. "I'm saying that conquest is more complicated than it appears. You came with weapons, Commander. We offer you food, questions, and kindness. Which do you think is more dangerous?" That evening, Jiwoo called a meeting with his senior officers. Hee-jin, Taemin, and Dong-hyun gathered in the conference room of the diplomatic complex. Earth had provided secure facilities for these discussions. "Tell me honestly," Jiwoo said. "Can we conquer these people?" Taemin spoke first. His skin showed dark colors, the Ryloth equivalent of solemnity. "No, Commander. I've analyzed every scenario. We could destroy their cities. We could kill millions, but we can't make them surrender. There's no mechanism for it. They're decentralized, ideologically diverse, and culturally programmed to resist authority. Even if we destroyed Earth, the colonies would continue. They might even unite against us. The one thing that makes humans truly dangerous is that they unify against external threats." Dong-hyun added, "More concerning, Commander. The humans are changing us. Our warriors talk with their people. They share meals. They exchange ideas. Some have expressed interest in staying. The humans make it very easy to like them. They're weaponizing friendship," Hee-jin said with something like admiration. "They show us their children and ask about our families. They feed us and tell us jokes. They make us feel welcome. It's brilliantly effective." Jiwoo already knew all this. He had felt it himself. The slow erosion of certainty, the growing doubt about his mission, the unsettling realization that maybe the Confederation's way wasn't the only way. "What do you recommend?" he asked. Silence. Then Taemin said quietly, "I recommend we don't return to the Confederation." Everyone turned to look at him. He continued, his skin flickering with nervous colors. "The Confederation sent us to enforce order. But the humans have shown me something I didn't understand before. That order isn't the only way to build civilization. They have chaos, yes, but it's creative chaos. They have conflict, but it drives them forward. They have freedom, and it makes them resilient. You want to defect?" Hee-jin asked. "I want to learn," Taemin replied. "I want to understand how they do what they do. And I don't think the Confederation will let me do that if we return." Jiwoo looked at Dong-hyun. The xenopsychologist nodded slowly. "I agree with Taemin. The humans represent something genuinely new in our understanding of civilization. The Confederation will either try to destroy them or control them. Neither option feels right anymore." Hee-jin was the last to speak. She had served with Jiwoo for 300 cycles. She was the closest thing he had to a friend. "Commander, I will follow your decision. But I will tell you what I think. We came here as conquerors. We can't be conquerors anymore. The humans have made that impossible. So we must choose what we become instead. Jiwoo stood and walked to the window. Night had fallen over Geneva. The city glowed with millions of lights. Above, invisible but always present, his fleet waited in orbit. His warriors waited for orders. The Confederation waited for victory. He thought about his 500 cycles of service. Every battle won. Every enemy defeated. He had earned his reputation through absolute dedication to Confederation principles. Order, hierarchy, strength. He was the supreme commander, the greatest warrior in known space, and he had been utterly defeated by a species that offered him tea and asked about his feelings. He made his decision. Hyejin, prepare a message to the Confederation Council. Tell them we have evaluated humanity and found them to be unsuitable for forced integration. Request permission to establish a permanent diplomatic mission. They'll refuse, Commander. I know. Send it anyway. The response came within 2 cycles. It was exactly what Jiwoo expected. The Council rejected the request. They ordered the fleet to either destroy humanity or return immediately to face disciplinary action for failure. Jiwoo gathered his entire fleet through holographic communication. 50,000 warriors from a dozen species appeared on screens throughout every vessel. He stood before them all in his full ceremonial armor, wearing every honor scar with pride. Warriors of the Confederation, he began. We came to this system with a mission, to enforce Confederation authority over humanity. I stand before you now to admit that I have failed this mission, not because humanity defeated us in battle, but because there was no battle to win. We cannot conquer a species that refuses to acknowledge the concept of conquest. We cannot force submission from those who would rather die free than live controlled. He paused, letting his words sink in. The Council has ordered us to destroy humanity or return in disgrace. I reject both options. Instead, I offer each of you a choice. Any warrior who wishes to return to the Confederation may do so now, with no dishonor, carrying my personal recommendation. But those who wish to stay, who wish to learn from these strange, chaotic, impossible humans, you may remain. I will request asylum from Earth on behalf of any who choose to stay. The response was immediate and chaotic. Some warriors declared their loyalty to the Confederation and began preparing to depart. But others, more than Jiwoo had expected, chose to stay. By the end of the cycle, roughly half the fleet had decided to remain. Bora, handling the logistics of suddenly having thousands of alien refugees, looked simultaneously exhausted and excited. Okay, so this is complicated. We'll need to arrange housing, food supplies, cultural orientation programs. Some of your people breathe different atmospheres, so we'll need specialized facilities. The UN is convening emergency sessions. Several nations have offered to host refugees. We'll figure this out, we always do, but it's going to be messy. Everything with humans is messy, Jiwoo observed. Yes, but it's our mess. Now it's your mess too. Welcome to humanity, Commander. We don't conquer, we absorb. Years passed. Earth's population swelled with refugees not just from Jiwoo's fleet, but from other fleets the Confederation sent. Each time the same pattern repeated. Warriors arrived prepared to conquer. They encountered humans who offered friendship, questions, and stubborn refusal to submit. Some warriors attacked and were repelled by surprisingly effective human defenses. Most didn't attack at all. They just got confused, frustrated, and eventually curious. Tae-min became one of the leading scholars on comparative civilization studies. He wrote papers that spread throughout the galaxy,